A week ago, it was the Minister of Trade and Industry, Ibrahim Patel, announcing that his department was working on a black industrialist report that would incorporate new commitments towards transformation. And now the Banking Association of South Africa and other entities have also released their latest transformation reports with good and bad news. The Black Business Council has also weighed in on the conversation, with its CEO Kganki Matabani penning a piece that focuses directly at the Public Investment Corporation, the PIC, where he laments their non-activism stance on transformation. He joins us now via Zoom. A very good morning to you, Mr. Matabani. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you very much, Desiree, and the viewers at home.
It feels like this should be a panel discussion. Sanlam, the Black Management Forum, the Banking Council and Busara leadership either releasing reports or holding discussions in the past weeks. What has revived the conversation around transformation in the country?
We just celebrated 27 years of democracy, and a few days ago we also celebrated 25 years of the adoption of the Constitution, which has been lauded the world over that is a very democratic type of constitution. But I think what we need to do, we need to then do an introspection and say, over the past 25 years, 27 years, what have you achieved? So that we don't repeat the same mistake. We don't sit here 27 years from now and say we are not transforming. The economy is not owned by the majority. What have we done? So for me, we need to then say, let's sit down and say this has worked, this has not worked. What then do we need to do to make sure that what has not worked changed? For example, I'm giving an example of the PIC. The PIC used to attend AGMs of private sector companies. And I think it's important to specify and emphasize the need for private sector companies to transform, because majority of them, they own, if you look at all the sectors, they own 80 to 90% of the sectors in the economy, which means that ultimately they'll end up owning 90% of the economy. And when you look at government, where government is a direct shareholder, like in SOCs, in government departments, the transformation has happened. Black people hold senior positions, women hold senior positions. They are lacking in terms of the people who living with disabilities, but the young people are holding senior positions. But where things are not happening is in the private sector, where government is represented by the PIC as an indirect shareholder. So it means government has done its work where it's a direct shareholder, but the PIC, where it's a direct shareholder, is not necessarily accepting the necessary pressure that it should.
You literally say in the article that to mark 27 years of democracy and not freedom, this institutional investor with 1.9 trillion assets under management has lost its activism streak. Let's just remind our viewers what the prerogatives of transformation are.
So there are few elements in transformation, but the important one is ownership. Because when you own, I think, take an example, if you have your own spaza shop, you decide who to hire, you decide where you're supposed to procure from, you decide who's supposed to be trained, and all those things. So for me, ownership is very, very important. And the PIC owns almost 10% of the economy, which means in every major listed companies, the PIC is the major shareholder. If they can utilize their muscle like they used to do when, for example, Sasol refused to hire a black woman as a director, they were forced to do that. So if you can go back to those days, I think that there would be a much more transformation in the country. If you look at, for example, when Basani left African Bank, when the latest regarding the ABSA saga with the Minele, the PIC said nothing, and the PIC is a major shareholder. So you would have expected the PIC to say, look, there must be something that is not done right, and if that was happening, it will mean that all the companies that are looking at replacing CEOs. They will think twice because they know the PIC will ask relevant questions regarding the transformation. But if the single biggest shareholder keeps quiet, it sends a wrong message to the companies that they can do as they wish.
Why do you think the PIC has reduced, or as you say, not fulfilling its mandate of activism in this regard? What brought about the change?
I think the first thing is that there's been a lot of instability at the PIC. There've been commissions and all those type of things. So I suspect because now they are still rebuilding, the focus has always been has almost exclusively been internal. And once they've done with internal restructuring and filling of the positions, I'm appealing with them, with the new CEO of the PIC and the EXCO, to say, let's then relook at the PIC and its role and say, 27 years from now on, the PIC must look at itself and say, we've effected economic transformation in the country. We've made sure that the ownership patterns have changed. We've made sure that the young people are incorporated in the economy. We've made sure that the women and people living with disabilities have been incorporated in the economy, not only by funding them, but also by being an activist, ensuring that those companies that have been funded by the PIC, they behave in a transformational manner, unlike now where they're just doing as they wish and no one is calling them to question and calling them to order and making them to account.
So you say they should take on major companies for not appointing enough black people to their boards. Are you part of that call for changes to the broad-based black economic empowerment regulatory framework and concerns about the impacts of the once empowered, always empowered principle?
Yeah, I think that firstly, the issue is not about the boards necessarily. Remember, the boards are meeting there once in 3 months. My appeal and call is that let's appoint black people and women in executive positions, in EXCOs positions like the CEO, the CFO, the COO, and so on. Because those are the people who are taking decisions on a daily basis. Those are the people who decide where procurement is supposed to go. So if you strengthen that with serious and more diversity, we're likely to see more diversity in the way procurement is done. And then by procuring from the right people, then you'll be able to grow the small business, increase purchasing power in the hands of the majority. And then that way we'll be able to grow the economy. We really need that for the economic reconstruction and recovery program to support small businesses. And you can only do that if you have the powers to make the changes. And then as far as the broad-based economic empowerment act is concerned, I think we should have that discussion of whether it has been effective or not. But let's look at the implementation first, because if you look at most of the corporates, what they do, they do what we call a tick box approach, where they will say, if I appoint a woman here on the board or a woman on EXCO, I'll get so many BE points. They are not implementing the spirit of the act. The spirit of the act says the economy should look like South Africa. So when you visit a company that is in BE level 1, you should be able to see BE level 1. But most of the time now when you visit private sector companies who are claiming to be BE level 1, they don't look like BE level 1. Because the act, I think it's important for us to remember that the act's intention was not to end with 25% ownership by black people. Is to have all the companies being black owned. Meaning that the economy and the ownership of the economy should reflect the demographic of the country, which is happening in all other countries all over the world. So we're not calling for anything that is out of the ordinary. So
of course, the bigger picture here is to improve the South African economy. What, according to the Black Business Council, will happen in terms of turning around the fortunes of the country if transformation is implemented properly?
remember, for the economy to grow, you need the people to be employed, and when people are employed, people will then pay taxes, and when they pay taxes, then that will grow the economy. You also need the companies to also grow and become global. So when you're supporting small businesses, for example, you'll end up with them appointing more people and employing more people. And when they employ more people, they will grow, and the tax base will also grow. And also what we're also calling for is localization. For example, if you look at during the PPEs and even now with the vaccine, we're dependent on other countries. We're dependent on India, we're dependent on China, which means we're creating jobs in other countries. But if you localize and give businesses to South Africa and produce these vaccines here, we will then be able to grow the economy, because then jobs that are now exported to other countries will be jobs that are given to South Africans who are here in South Africa. So they are multi-pronged approach to creating jobs and growing the economy. But transformation is at the core, because you don't want the majority one day to say, we've had enough promises, but this economy is not working, so we need to do something about it. We need to render the country ungovernable. We don't want to go there. To sustain the democracy that we've been having for 27 years, we really need to ensure that all the people who are in South Africa, the majority of people who are in South Africa, feel like they are part of the economy. They feel like they own a part of the economy, because if they don't feel like they do, they can easily unravel the democracy that we have.
Well, let's thank you very much for talking to us this morning about this very important conversation of national importance. Kganki Matabani is the CEO of the Black Business Council, and we're trying to get a representative, or rather a response from the PIC in this regard.